Behind me stands the statue of a man, commonly referred to as Old Hickory by those who loved him, because he was deemed to be as unbending as a tree and as tough as wood. This 7th president, his name now stands across this city. Jackson, Mississippi, to be specific. Unfortunately, a few days ago, the city council here voted 5-1 to take down this statue and move it elsewhere. That action follows an unfortunately heinous trend to whitewash American history, as we see statues of American founders and presidents torn down or removed or vandalized across our nation. Now, this was indeed just a man, not a god, not a divine being. His life and his political legacy were complicated, worthy of a debate, worthy of criticism, and worthy of better understanding. However, removed from the debate at the current moment are the reasons why this man left office as perhaps one of the most beloved presidents in U.S. history. A man of the people, Andrew Jackson represented the rising values of the new American West. A president that came of age during the American Revolution, fought valiantly during that war in the War of 1812, and went on to stand up against political opponents and fight the perceived corruption in Washington at the time. That legacy deserves to be renewed. And so we sit here at Jackson's feet and recall that legacy. Born in 1767, I believe, his parents and 2 older brothers had just immigrated from Ireland 2 years before. His father passed away shortly before his birth, leaving his mother to raise him and his 2 older brothers alone. When the war broke out, he, at the age of 13, volunteered to serve on the side of the American Revolution. His oldest brother died of heat stroke. He and his second oldest brother were captured by the British. At one point, a British officer asked him to polish his boots. Rejecting, the British officer slashed him with his sword, leaving a scar that he would hold for life, and with it a memory of that war. His mother negotiated a prisoner release, just as the boys were succumbing to illness. After being released in exchange, Andrew's older brother died. Shortly after that, his mother, while serving as a nurse in South Carolina, died. At the age of 14, Andrew Jackson was left an orphan, alone in the world. Now, while that for many others would be the end of the story, for him it was just the beginning. He persevered. He fought on. He went on to become a lawyer, to become a judge, to serve in both houses of Congress, and ultimately to become president. However, the reason that he stands here in Jackson, Mississippi, is because of his courageous valor in the War of 1812. Jackson was tasked with the daunting challenge of repelling a potential British invasion in the South. Early on in the war, he and his militia set up north of Natchez, Mississippi, in preparing a potential defense. Instructed to return back to Tennessee, he personally financed the travel for his men, and furthermore even gave up his own horse for the sick, walking alongside his men. A people's general. Later on in the War of 1812, he rallied a small force to defeat a much larger British set of invaders. In what should have been absolute destruction, the Battle of New Orleans, Jackson, through sheer passion and grit and energy, led his American troops to victory that day. His name was sung for and praised across the nation. In honor of that battle, we named our newly found capital here Jackson, Mississippi. But that was not the end for General Jackson. Jackson, now well known across the land, was elected to the Tennessee Senate, and then onwards and upwards eventually to the American presidency. His promise to make the White House and American government be representative of the people. Over the course of his presidency, he battled entrenched interests and rooted out corruption. Although his politics are complicated and the debate enduring, it takes a lot for a Republican to be forced to stand here today and defend the founder of America's Democratic Party. His enemies called him a jackass. He thought it was funny, and so he made that the symbol of his newly founded party, a tradition which still, ironically, stands today. As this city aims, in the coming weeks or months, to tear down this statue, we as Americans are prepared to remember his legacy, the entirety of it. The orphaned son of immigrants who was set down a potential road of nothingness, dragged himself up by bootstraps and courage to become an American hero.